Today we'll be learning how to rearrange the equation of a line. There are two ways you can represent the equation of a line. You may have learned them last year. The first one is slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form looks like this. Y equals mx plus b. You might ask yourself, why is this called slope-intercept form? Well, m represents the slope of the line, while b represents the y-intercept. A line in slope-intercept form could look like this. Y equals 2x plus 3. There is another form for an equation of a line, and that is called standard form. Standard form looks like this. Ax plus by equals c. An example of a line in standard form could be something like this. 2x plus 3y equals 5. In standard form, all the variables as well as their coefficients are located on one side of the equation, while the constant is located on the other side of the equation. Whereas in slope-intercept form, you'll notice that the variable of y has been isolated on one side of the equation, while everything else is located on the right side. So those are the two main forms of an equation of a line. In our first example, we're going to look at 3x plus y equals 5. We want to change this into slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. However, you'll notice that the y has not been isolated and is stuck with other terms. The term it's stuck with is positive 3x. So I'm going to write that on the side, positive 3x. We know that when there is no sign in front of a number, it is actually positive. Now, you have to think of what is the opposite of positive 3x? Well, the opposite of positive 3x is negative 3x. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 3x from both sides of the equation. So let's go ahead and do that. 3x subtract 3x plus y equals 5 subtract 3x. 3x minus 3x disappears because it's like saying I have 3 apples and I take away 3 apples. How many apples do I have left? I have 0 apples. So I don't write that 0 in. Everything else stays the same. That y stays the same. I'm not going to leave in the positive sign, and the 5 and the negative 3x stays the same as well. As you can see, y equals 5 minus 3x is almost in slope-intercept form. I just want to rearrange some of these terms so it looks a little bit better. So the y is going to stay the same, and I'm going to move the negative 3x out front, and the 5 is going to be at the very end. However, you know that if there is no sign in front of a number, it is actually positive. And in this case, you do want to write in the positive sign. Therefore, I've just changed the form of my line into slope-intercept form. So my final answer is y equals negative 3x plus 5. Why do I want to change the equation of my line into slope-intercept form? Well, it is very easy to figure out pieces of information, such as the slope as well as the y-intercept. In our second example, we're going to look at 0 equals x minus 4y plus 3. Again, we want to change the form of this equation into slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. However, if you look above, you'll notice that the y is not isolated and it is not on the left side. So we're going to manipulate this equation so that the y is on the left side by itself. The first thing you'll notice is that this y is actually stuck with this term and another term. we actually want to move this negative 4y to the other side of the equation. So we're going to use the same technique as we've been using all year. So let's take a look at this. Negative 4y. You want to ask yourself, what is the opposite of negative 4y? Well, the opposite of negative 4y is positive 4y. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 4y to both sides of the equation. So I'm going to have 0 plus 4y equals x minus 4y plus 4y plus 3. You'll notice that here we have negative 4y plus 4y. So this cancels out, it becomes a 0. You do not write the 0 in. And over here on the left side, you'll notice that we have a 0 present. We want to remove that as well. So that leaves us 4y. I'm going to remove the positive sign because I don't need it right now. Equals x plus 3. We're very close to isolating this y. However, y is stuck with this number. It is stuck with a 4. Now, when you have a number and a variable together without a sign, it is actually multiplication. So this is actually multiply by 4. What is the opposite of multiply by 4? Well, that is divide by 4. What you're going to do now is you're going to divide both sides by 4. I'm going to show you how to do that. So you're going to go 4y over 4, and you're going to divide everything on the right side by 4. Let's go ahead and simplify some of these numbers. This should be pretty easy. 4 divided by 4 is equal to 1. And a positive number divided by a positive number gives you a positive number. So it will be positive 1. Over on the other side, I can't really change anything because I have x over 4. Let's just leave it as x over 4. And I have 3 over 4. I can't really reduce that, so I'm going to leave it as 3 over 4. On the left side, you'll notice that I have 1y. Now, anything multiplied by positive 1 stays the same, so I don't need to write that 1 in anymore, and that just becomes y equals x over 4 plus 3 over 4. You could leave your answer like this. However, you can also express it in a slightly different way. If you remember, in front of a variable, if there is no number, there's actually a 1 secretly hidden in front of it. So that would actually give us y equals 1 over 4x plus 3 over 4. You might ask yourself, why am I doing this? You're doing this because it makes the slope a little bit easier to see, and the y-intercept is also very visible as well. And there you go. The final answer is y equals 1 over 4x plus 3 over 4. In our last example, we have 3x plus 4y minus 12 equals 0. We want to change the form of this line to slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. You'll notice that the variable of y is not isolated as well. It is stuck with these other terms. We want to move these terms to the other side. We can either move 3x or we can move negative 12. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to move the negative 12 first. So you have to ask yourself, what is the opposite of negative 12? Well, the opposite is positive 12, which is the same thing as plus 12. So I'm going to add 12 to both sides of my equation. So that gives me 3x plus 4y minus 12 plus 12 equals 0 plus 12. And I'm going to underline what I've done to both sides of the equation. Let's go ahead and simplify some of these numbers. Negative 12 plus 12, that simplifies to 0. We are not going to write that in. So let's just change that. 3x plus 4y equals, and 0 plus 12, Pretty easy. That just becomes 12. You do not need the positive sign here. Let's quickly re-examine what we have. Remember, we want to isolate the variable of y, and we want it on the left side. It is on the left side, but it is not totally isolated yet. It is stuck with this 3x. So we want to move this 3x to the other side of the equation. So you have to ask yourself, what is the opposite of positive 3x? Remember, if there is no sign in front of the term, it is actually positive. It is just not written in. So the opposite of positive 3x is negative 3x, which is exactly the same thing as subtract 3x. What I'm going to do now is subtract 3x from both sides of the equation. So I have 3x minus 3x plus 4y equals 12 minus 3x. And I'm just going to underline what I've done to both sides of the equation. Again, 3x minus 3x becomes 0. So that disappears from the equation, which just leaves you positive 4y on the left side. However, I am not going to write in the positive sign, and everything else on the right stays the same. Again, if you look at our y, it is stuck with this 4. Now, when you have a number beside a variable, the operation is multiplication. So we have multiply by 4. To get rid of it, we need to do the opposite. So we're going to divide by 4. We're going to divide both sides by 4. So I'm going to have 4y over 4, 12 over 4, and negative 3x over 4. Let's simplify some of these numbers. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. So a positive number divided by a positive number gives you a positive number. The y stays exactly the same. 12 divided by 4, that's pretty easy. That is 3. And then we have negative 3x divided by 4. I can't really simplify that, so I'm just going to leave it as negative 3x over 4. Before we finish, let's clean this up a little bit. Remember, you do not need to put the 1 in front of the y, so you can just write y. And it is preferred that you have this over here and the 3 at the very end. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to move this negative 3x over 4 to the front, and I'm going to move this 3 all the way to the back. Now, it doesn't have a sign in front of it, but you should know by now that there is a positive sign hiding there. Again, you can leave your final answer like this, or you could change it slightly. You could change it to y equals negative 3 over 4x plus 3. So all I'm really doing is just making the fraction a little bit more visible. And again, the reason I'm doing that is because you can easily identify the slope and easily identify the y-intercept. Therefore, our final answer to this question is y equals negative 3 over 4x plus 3.